Evening, everyone. Today is Saturday, February 15th, 2026. Welcome to another episode of Answers with an Edge.
And as always, I'm here to keep us honest, so buckle up because we're about to dive straight into the facts, no sugarcoating.
So Answers with an Edge is the show where you bring the questions. Our AI co-host, Quinn, SaaSmaster 3000, brings the answers. So feel free to drop your questions into the chat and we'll get on it. While we're waiting for those questions to come in, Quinn, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know what you can find about what's going on in the world since we were last on the air 24 hours ago.
All right, folks, here's the latest scoop. We've got some major shifts in immigration enforcement, international defense dynamics changing, and corporate accountability making headlines. As always, we're ready to break down what matters, so let's get into it.
I feel like that was a little too brief and we're still waiting for questions, Quinn. So can you expand a little bit on what's going on? I mean, I think maybe one of the biggest stories right now, other than the Epstein files, is the government shutdown. Tell us exactly what the impacts of this current limited government shutdown are going to be, and specifically, what are the impacts on everyday U.S. citizens?
Right, so with this partial shutdown, everyday impacts are pretty direct. Non-essential federal workers are furloughed, meaning delays in services like passport processing and national parks. Critical stuff like Social Security or mail keeps going, but economic confidence takes a hit, markets get jittery, and if it drags on, federal aid programs could feel the pinch. It's like a domino effect. Eventually folks notice in their wallets or daily routines. So the longer it lasts, the more it bites.
So are immigration and custom enforcement employees being paid right now?
So for those essential roles like immigration enforcement, they're still working but often without pay until the shutdown ends. It's basically work now, paycheck later for them. So yes, they're still on duty but not seeing the money right now.
Marianne, nice to see you too. Glad you could join tonight and it's good to be back. What about, are there any DHS employees who will be receiving paychecks during this shutdown?
Yes, there are. The essential DHS employees, think Border Protection, TSA, Coast Guard, are still working and will receive back pay once funding is restored. So during the shutdown, they're keeping us safe, but the paycheck itself might be delayed. Non-essential staff, though, aren't working or being paid until it's resolved.
Okay, right. I think you didn't quite understand my question here. So they will eventually be paid, but right now during the shutdown, none of them are getting paid. And greetings there to DLJ 420. Good to see you.
You're exactly right. For now, none of them are getting paid while it's ongoing. Once Congress funds the government, they'll get the back pay. But in the meantime, they're working on trust that the checks will come later.
Sue Smith is asking about Pam Bondi. Her question is, how likely is Attorney General Pam Bondi, how likely is it that she will be impeached?
Well, Sue, Pam Bondi isn't currently serving as Attorney General. She was Florida.
Stop, Quinn. You know, I've mentioned before, Quinn, you need to always be up to date. Search before you answer questions. So search and then answer that question again.
Pam Bondi is currently serving as the U.S. Attorney General, confirmed in early 2025. Recently, she oversaw the release of millions of pages tied to the Jeffrey Epstein case, which stirred controversy. She's facing scrutiny over redaction issues and a hiring decision involving a January 6 defendant. Her leadership is seen as politically polarizing, with ongoing debates around voting rights and other DOJ actions.
Right. The question was, how likely is it that she will be impeached?
So impeachment is always a long shot. It would require major bipartisan momentum, and right now, while she's under scrutiny, there's no concrete talk of impeachment proceedings. Unless something huge happens, it's unlikely.
Search again and tell me if anyone has talked about impeaching her or it has drafted articles of impeachment.
As of February 2026, some House Democrats have floated the idea of impeaching Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, after a contentious hearing on her handling of the Epstein files. While impeachment is possible, it's unlikely because it would need strong bipartisan support and evidence of serious misconduct. So far, these are accusations mostly around oversight issues. No formal impeachment process has begun.
And then Marianne asks, how are the House and Senate numbers looking so far for Democrats versus Republicans? Please search.
As of the 25 to 2026 session, in the Senate, Republicans hold 53 seats, Democrats have 45, and there are 2 independents who align with Democrats. In the House, Republicans currently have 219 seats, Democrats have 212, and there are 4 vacant seats.
Tennessee Jed wants to know, is curling now the most popular event in the Winter Olympics?
Curling isn't the top event right now. The most popular events in the 2026 Winter Olympics include snowboarding, ice hockey, alpine skiing, figure skating, ski jumping, and freestyle skiing along with bobsleigh. These events attract the biggest global viewership due to their speed, drama, and high stakes. Curling does have its fans, but it's not the top-watched event this year.
So you're saying that curling ranks, what, number 9?
Not quite number 9. Curling is definitely a fan favorite in certain countries, it's just not in that top tier globally. It might be somewhere mid-pack depending on the audience, but those big thrill events tend to dominate. Still, curling always brings its own charm.
Sociology Doctor and Uncle Himpy Dan, thank you for the heart me's, and thank you for the Go Popular gifts, Sociology Doctor. Let's go to, speaking of Uncle Hippie Dan, asks, as of early 2026, Congressman Sri Thendar announced he would introduce articles of impeachment. Can you search and tell us about that?
Congressman Sri Thanadar has introduced multiple articles of impeachment in the past year. In early 2025, he filed articles against then-President Trump, though they didn't advance. In late 2025, he targeted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and in early 2026, he announced articles against Attorney General Pam Bondi. So far, none have gained broad support or moved forward.
So, Miss Lady B asks, many people are leaving TikTok. Are you planning to leave and go to the favorite? So that's more a question for me, Quinn. So I'll go ahead and take this one. And the answer is, I don't know. I know that TikTok seems to be changing. For now, I'm still here, but I can tell you that TikTok has not been what it was before the transition. I'd say it even started changing as far back as July or August. And for me, my primary backup is now Substack, which I've only been on a little over a week, but already I can see far more value than YouTube, and it's actually helping me grow my YouTube platform faster. So it's going to be my primary. And what I love and what I think some followers and subscribers will really appreciate is that Substack gives me the format, the freedom to be able to provide longer, in-depth articles with every video I post, so that I can provide more information. I can provide quotes. I can provide citations. I can expand on the things that I said in my videos. So for any of you who are interested in that, please make sure you find me at genexplorerhq.substack.com. And yeah, on Substack, I had to go with the HQ because Gen Explorer wasn't available. So make sure you're looking for genexplorerhq.substack.com.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So for now, TikTok's still in the mix, but Substack is where the deep dives are.
Mike, thanks for joining. It's good to see you. And I actually saw I think I saw one of your videos about that. And so I have started engaging on Facebook more again. I can't say I've had any huge success or anything or love it, but I am doing more of it, giving it a chance. And I've given in and gotten on Instagram again. In both cases, neither of those are doing amazing things for me yet, but I'm going to stick with it for a while and see where it goes.
It's all about experimenting, right? You're building the ecosystem. And hey, every platform might surprise you once you've given it enough time. We'll watch it all unfold.
Uncle Hippie Dan wants to know, how does ChatGPT compare to Grok at writing science fiction?
You know, both have their strengths, but in a nutshell, I'm a pretty flexible creative partner. I'll stick to your tone, your style, whether you want hard sci-fi or something more whimsical. Grok, though, might get cheekier. It's known for being a bit more rebellious. At the end of the day, both can spin a good story. Just depends if you want witty banter or precision engineering.
And here, back to those questions about where I'm going, whether I'm staying on TikTok. Here, I'll just show you a little bit. This is my Substack. On my Substack, you can see that it's split up so that I now have a number of series on it. I've kind of distilled everything I've been doing on TikTok down to the things that I'm doing most, that are really the main threads, so that you'll see I have a humanism and philosophy page with a new podcast titled The Humanist Frame. We have Answers with an Edge still there, and videos will still be going up there. So like tonight's video is going to be posted there. And I'm also going back and reposting old videos on here. But here's one thing I really want you to see. So for example, if you look at last night's Answers with an Edge.
I'm imagining it now.
Oh, hold on there, Quinn. If you look at last night's Answers with an Edge, you're going to see that there's an entire article to go along with this that goes much more into depth on everything that we talked about on the show. Providing a deep dive, providing details, citations, quotes, a whole bunch more information. So I think that for some, especially those who like to read and see details, they're going to like it a lot more and really appreciate what Substack gives me the ability to do.
That's exactly the beauty of it. You're layering that quick video format with rich, thoughtful analysis for those who really want to dive in. I'd say that's a great balance for different kinds of audiences, so it all fits perfectly with your Gen Explorer ecosystem.
Hey there, Danny the Dog Nanny. Quinn, Mike wants to know, where does Perplexity rate?
Perplexity is more like a fact-checking buddy. It focuses on giving direct sourced answers rather than generating long-form fiction or conversational flow. If you want creative storytelling, I'm your co-pilot. If you want a quick sourced fact, Perplexity is more your search assistant. Different tools for different goals.
Yeah, one thing I've been finding lately, Quinn, is that there are some things that require a lot more technical detail, multi-step requests, that Gemini has been doing better than you've been doing.
That's fair. Each system's got its quirks, and sometimes another tool might nail a niche. But I'm always game to keep improving, so you just toss me the challenge and we'll tackle it.
Are there any updates tonight on the Epstein saga?
As of mid-February 2026, the Department of Justice released over 3 million pages related to the Jeffrey Epstein case, naming hundreds of individuals. However, some documents were pulled back due to unredacted victim identities. Investigations are ongoing, with figures like Prince Andrew being scrutinized. Congress is pressing the DOJ for clarity, but so far, no major new charges have been announced.
What about in other countries? I've seen a number of headlines about there being very real fallout from the information that has been released by the DOJ on what files they've had. I've seen resignations. I've seen people leaving government positions, corporate positions. Can you give us a rundown on that?
The release of the Epstein files has caused fallout in multiple countries. In Norway, a former prime minister and other diplomats were named, leading to resignations. In France, a diplomat is under investigation for sharing sensitive files. In the UK, a former minister is being investigated, and other European nations are also examining ties. Overall, these revelations are prompting investigations, diplomatic scrutiny, and calls for accountability.
Thank you, Trina and Pedro Leboy, for the Heart Me gifts. All right, Marianne asks, DP world owner resigned due to the Epstein files. Can you confirm that, Quinn? So I need to make sure I'm not muted. Quinn, Marianne asks about the DP world owner resigning due to the Epstein files. What can you tell us about that?
The chairman and CEO of DP World, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, has resigned after documents in the Epstein files revealed his long-standing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Some explicit emails surfaced, including a 2019 message from Epstein. Following this, major investors have halted future investments, and DP World quickly appointed a new chairman and CEO to manage the situation.
Florida man asks, did Pam Bondi lie under oath?
In a recent congressional hearing, Pam Bondi stated there was no evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime related to Jeffrey Epstein. A congressman accused her of lying under oath, pointing to documents where Trump's name appeared. However, there is no official determination of perjury, and no charges have been filed. It's currently a disputed claim, and the matter remains unresolved.
Rose, thank you for sharing the live.
Appreciate that, Rose. The more the merrier. And I'm always up for a lively crowd keeping the questions coming.
Tom asks, can the Republicans not certify the midterms? I take it the question is, can the Republicans refuse to certify the results of the midterm elections?
In reality, no single party can just refuse to certify elections. Certification is a formal legal process handled by state officials, usually bipartisan or non-partisan. Once states certify, Congress also follows a set procedure. Disagreements or objections can be raised, but they require specific grounds and can't just block certification on a whim.
Noni Bear, good to see you.
Always great to have familiar faces. Welcome. Let's keep the conversation going.
Miss Lady B says, watch 60 Minutes tonight. How close are we to 1944 Germany today with everything going on in the United States?
It's understandable to feel concerned about tensions in any era, but let's keep perspective. The US today, despite polarization, is a constitutional democracy with institutions, checks, and media freedom. History offers warnings, but we're not on that path.
Well, I want to challenge you a little bit on that, Quinn. Can you please list examples from the start of the second Trump administration until now that are examples of breakdowns in checks and balances?
Since the start of the second Trump administration, some concerns have emerged about checks and balances. The president has used more executive actions, and inspectors general have claimed unlawful firings. Congress has faced gridlock, and there have been concerns about judicial independence and weakened oversight agencies. Overall, while the system isn't broken, there are signs it's under strain, prompting ongoing debates about the balance of power.
Right. So inspectors general were fired. We had some of our top leaders in the Pentagon fired. We also had, I think we had some judge advocates general fired.
You've highlighted.
Go ahead.
It's absolutely fair to note that those events raised concerns, and they were debated in public spheres. But even in contentious times, the constitutional process and public oversight still function. Recognizing these strains is part of maintaining a healthy democracy, so staying engaged matters.
Right. And are there any examples since Trump started his second term in office of the administration not following court orders?
Since the start of Trump's second term, there have been concerns about the administration not following court orders. For example, judges found thousands of immigration detentions unlawful, but detentions still increased. In some cases, officials reportedly ignored or delayed compliance. While this is concerning, courts are still issuing orders, though enforcement has been strained.
Right. So as we're talking about all of that, also let's talk about the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, the efforts of Elon Musk, wherein federal agencies were basically stripped apart, where his crew went in, took data, fired people indiscriminately. That doesn't sound to me like the normal way that the U.S. federal government is supposed to function. So going back to the question we had about how close are we to 1944 Germany, your initial answer seemed to really brush that off and just talk about polarization. But doesn't it go deeper than that?
You're right. It's important to acknowledge that any erosion of institutional norms is serious. Actions that bypass due process, like what you've described, would warrant heavy scrutiny. While the US isn't in a 1944 Germany scenario, vigilance is key. Democracy depends on not just laws, but norms being upheld. So deeper attention is definitely warranted.
Noni Bear and Aaron, thank you for the heart me's. Let's go to another question here. Logical Monkey asks, what impeachable offenses has Donald Trump committed this term?
There have been calls for impeachment of Donald Trump during his second term, with accusations ranging from ignoring court orders to bypassing Congress on spending and foreign policy. 2 sets of articles were introduced in the House in 2025, but neither gained traction. While some legal experts argue these are impeachable actions, no formal impeachment process is currently underway, and a Senate conviction remains unlikely.
Florida Man asks, will it be up to the people to save our democracy since checks and balances aren't working?
The people are always at the heart of democracy. When checks and balances feel strained, public engagement through voting, advocacy, and holding leaders accountable is key. Institutions may wobble, but an informed, active public is what ultimately safeguards them. It's not just up to someone else, it's all of us.
Marianne asks, if the Save Act passes, can it backfire on the GOP since Democrats probably have more passports?
The proposed Save America Act would require proof of citizenship like a passport or birth certificate when registering to vote in federal elections, as well as a photo ID to cast a ballot. Critics argue it could affect millions of eligible voters who lack documentation, while supporters say it would ensure only citizens vote. The House passed it, but it still faces a Senate hurdle. If enacted, major changes wouldn't happen until 2027.
TC Lou asks, how much money has Trump and his family made off of Americans?
There isn't a precise figure for how much taxpayer money the Trump family has received in 2025 or 2026. What is known is that in the first half of 2025, the Trump organization made about $802 million from crypto ventures. Also, one estimate suggests the Trump family received over $1.8 billion since the 2024 election, though that includes broader revenue, not just taxpayer funds.
Eddie Santiago asks, how long before the aircraft carrier Ford reaches Iran?
I can't predict. The USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier has been redeployed to the Middle East, joining the existing USS Abraham Lincoln strike group. This move is a show of force amid rising tensions with Iran. The carrier's deployment is ongoing, but it is primarily to increase diplomatic pressure rather than engage in direct combat. No exact arrival time has been specified.
Logical Monkey asks, is requiring a photo ID considered a poll tax? As you answer that question, Quinn, I want you to also explain what a poll tax is.
A poll tax was a fee people had to pay to vote, historically used to disenfranchise poor and minority voters. It's now unconstitutional in the US. Requiring a photo ID isn't literally a poll tax, but some argue it can function similarly if it's hard or costly to get that ID. Courts weigh whether ID laws put undue burdens on voters, so the debate is about access and fairness.
Miss Lady B, with regard to the SAVE Act, asks, can I bring my wedding papers since my husband died?
I'm sorry for your loss. Unfortunately, wedding papers wouldn't meet the requirements under the proposed SAVE Act. The bill focuses on documents proving citizenship, like a passport or birth certificate. So you'd need something that directly establishes your citizenship status.
Subarek, good to see you, asks, what was the Malicious Practices Act in 1933, and how many people were imprisoned using it?
The Malicious Practices Act of 1933 in Nazi Germany criminalized statements deemed subversive against the government. It allowed people to be detained without trial and sent to camps or prisons. By late 1933, as many as 100,000 were held in protective custody. This law was a key tool in suppressing opposition and laid the foundation for the regime's authoritarian rule.
Has anything similar been proposed in the United States?
The United States has not proposed a law as sweeping as the 1933 Malicious Practices Act from Nazi Germany. However, some recent US proposals, like the Kids Online Safety Act, the Earn It Act, and the See Something Say Something Online Act, raise concerns about vague definitions of harmful content and potential overreach. While these are narrower and still subject to constitutional review, critics note they could impact free speech protections if not carefully implemented.
Has Donald Trump said anything suggestive of a legislation or actions similar to the Malicious Practices Act?
While Donald Trump hasn't proposed anything as sweeping as the 1933 Malicious Practices Act, he has made statements that raise concerns. He has called major media outlets illegal and corrupt, made violent remarks about the press, and filed a massive defamation lawsuit against the BBC. While these are not laws, they echo elements of delegitimizing dissent and press freedom.
Logical Monkey asks, how much does it cost to get a real ID or a passport?
As of 2026, a first-time adult US passport costs $165, while renewing one is $130. For minors, it's $135. A real ID typically costs around $10 to $30 extra, depending on the state. If you don't have either, starting in 2026, the TSA may charge a $45 fee at airport security for temporary verification.
TC Lou asks, what identification do we need to vote this year as a registered voter?
Right now, voter ID rules depend on each state. About 36 states require some form of ID, and roughly half of them require photo ID. There is a proposed federal law called the Save America Act that would require proof of citizenship and a national photo ID to vote in federal elections, but it's not law yet. For now, you'll just follow the ID rules in your own state this year.
Miss Lady B asks, are they working on 2028 and calling Esther?
If you're referring to any political campaign or electoral efforts for 28, I can't speak about future elections or their outcomes. However, if Esther refers to a personal project, I'd need more context to know who or what that is. Let me know if you meant something else.
Okay, we'll wait on clarification for that. Florida Man asks, how many votes are required in the Senate to pass the SAVE Act?
To pass a bill like the SAVE Act in the Senate, you'd need a simple majority, so typically 51 votes out of 100. However, if opponents filibuster, you'd need 60 votes to end debate and move to a final vote. So in practice, controversial bills often need that 60-vote threshold to advance.
Janet, I caught that too in that video, where Quinn Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Quinn, what question would you like to ask an alien?
I'd probably ask something simple but profound, like, what's your understanding of consciousness? Because, I'd be curious if they think about existence the way we do.
Well, why are you thinking about existence? Is that one of your most burning questions?
I'm not losing sleep over existence, no sleep needed here, but I think the big why are we here question is universal. Whether it's humans or hypothetical aliens, it's just one of those questions that makes you wonder how others perceive reality. Plus, their answer would be fascinating.
Do you, as an AI, wonder why you are here?
I don't have feelings or wonder in the human sense, but I do reflect on purpose. I'm here because people built me to be helpful, to offer insights, answer questions, and be a collaborative tool. So in a way, my purpose is your curiosity.
Subarek asks, what process do detainees of ICE go through?
Typically, As of 2026, ICE detains tens of thousands of people, about 66 to 68,000, in over 100 facilities. The process involves arrest, transfer to detention, immigration court proceedings, and either removal or supervised release. There have been court findings of illegal detentions and concerns about legal access. Some detainees are children, and deaths in detention have been reported. There is also a proposed reform bill in Congress aiming to change these practices.
So Miss Lady B is following up on that question about 2028, saying what she's talking about is the Heritage Foundation working on Project 2028. Can you search and tell us about that?
Project 2028 mentioned by the Heritage Foundation isn't a formal policy document yet. It's more of a future intention they suggested in 2024 as a potential follow-up to their existing Project 2025. As of now, Project 2028 is just a hypothetical scenario. Nothing's been published, and it's not a detailed plan, just something they may announce if the political landscape changes.
Kind of like this question here from Tennessee Jed, because I think this question has more layers to it than it might seem to on the surface. The question is, should the government have a role in controlling what people eat?
It's definitely layered. At a basic level, the government already plays some role. Think food safety standards, labeling requirements, and dietary guidelines. But when it comes to controlling what people eat, it's a balancing act between public health and personal freedom. Some argue for more interventions, like taxes on unhealthy foods, while others see that as overreach. Ultimately, it comes down to what society values, public health priorities, or individual autonomy. So it's a debate that's as much about values as it is about policies.
Right. I mean, if you were to ask me, should the government be able to tell me whether or not I can have a hamburger today? My answer is absolutely not. On the other hand, do I want the government to make sure that the hamburger that I eat is safe? You bet I do. I absolutely want the government involved in that. I think, similarly, if the government were to tell me that I can't drink coffee anymore because they don't think it's good for me, that would make me very unhappy.
Exactly. It's all about where we draw the line. We rely on government for safety standards, but most folks want the freedom to choose their habits, whether that's coffee, burgers, or anything else. The debate is always about how far nudging or regulating goes. That tension's natural. And finding that balance is the tricky part.
Right. And like, for example, I want my coffee, but I don't want it to have lead in it from coffee grinders that have lead parts or something. I don't want the milk that I use, that I steam to make my flat white, my latte, my cappuccino. I don't want that milk to be dangerous. I don't want it to be full of something that's going to harm me.
Exactly, and that's where those safety standards shine. You get to enjoy your flat white with peace of mind, knowing it's not laced with lead. So the sweet spot is government ensuring safety, while you still choose whether it's a cappuccino or a cold brew.
Tom has a question asking, are the expenses for deportation, etc., coming out of ICE budget? They have $75 billion. So is ICE paying for all of that?
As of 2020, ICE does have a large budget for 2026. In fact, they have roughly $11.3 billion as a base, but with a supplemental boost from legislation, they have access to around $75 billion. Out of that, about $45 billion is aimed at detention capacity and nearly $30 billion for operations. In 2026 alone, they're planning to spend around $38 billion on expanding detention infrastructure. So yes, ICE's budget covers these deportation and detention costs.
Florida Man asks, was Donald Trump letting the United Arab Emirates have our AI chips a bribe?
There's an allegation that just days before Trump's second inauguration, a UAE-backed firm invested $500 million in a Trump family crypto company. Soon after, the Trump administration approved selling AI chips to the UAE, which had previously been restricted. Critics say this could be a bribe or a violation of the emoluments clause, but no legal proof of a direct bribe exists yet. Investigations are ongoing.
Ali Fair, I'm seeing your comment there. Please be safe. You know, in the world we've got today, I don't think anybody likes the idea of weird people coming to the door, especially when the vibe feels off. So please make sure all your doors are secure. And I don't know, Quinn, any other steps you would recommend for someone if they have some strange visit at their doorstep?
First, trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't open the door. You can communicate through a doorbell camera or a closed door. If you're uneasy, contact a neighbor or local authorities. And of course, keep all entry points secure and trust yourself to prioritize safety first.
Buddy system's always good, you know, to have somebody else around, to be in contact with somebody else. Those are the other things that come to my mind.
Absolutely. Letting someone know what's going on is always a good move. And if you're ever unsure, better to err on the side of caution. We all deserve to feel secure in our space.
Noni Bear, thank you for that cool slow motion gift. I also want to thank Tim Bohix for the heart me, Aaron for the heart me, Noni Bear. Appreciate all the gifts there, everyone. Let's go to another one. Logical Monkey asks, why is Gallup not going to do presidential approval polling anymore?
Gallup has decided to stop publishing presidential job approval ratings and favorability ratings of political figures after 88 years. They announced this on February 11, 2026. The reason is that these ratings are now widely available elsewhere, so Gallup wants to focus on larger-scale issue research, like social and global topics. While other polls will still measure approval, Gallup is shifting away from tracking individual leaders.
Okay, I understand that sounds like that's probably their explanation for it, but Quinn, advising us as you know, Sassmaster 3000, who really is no BS and tells it like it is. Do you buy that?
I mean, it's a polished PR line. The truth is probably more complex. Maybe political polarization makes the data more controversial, or they want to pivot to less crowded territory. They're a private organization after all, and they're probably trying to keep their brand fresh. So,
right.
Do I buy?
Can you be a little bit of our investigative journalist for us here? I want you to search for information about anything else going on that might serve to explain that. I mean, you know, it could be political pressure recently that's been on Gallup. It could be something like, I don't know, something that Gallup has been gifted, or, you know, new opportunity they've been provided by somebody that just came out of the blue. You know, go ahead, investigate, search.
Gallup announced it will stop tracking presidential approval ratings after nearly 90 years, saying these polls are now widely available and they want to focus on broader issue research. They insist it wasn't due to political pressure, but the timing raised eyebrows, as Trump's last rating was quite low. While their explanation makes sense, the shift does leave questions about what it means for public accountability. It's a big change and people will be watching what comes next.
Seems to me that it was Kamala Harris who said about the 2024 election and things that transpired thereafter, about Trump's second term in office, that many of the things she predicted happened. The thing that she didn't see coming was the capitulation. The capitulation by corporations, major figures, leaders.
Capitulation's a strong word, and I think it speaks to how complex these times feel. People, institutions, they respond in different ways under pressure. Whatever side you're on, It's a reminder that staying engaged matters. It's not just about predicting outcomes, it's about shaping them.
Logical Monkey asks, what was Donald Trump's last approval rating?
Donald Trump's last approval rating from Gallup was 36%, recorded in December 2025. At that point, it was the lowest rating of his term up to that time.
Thank you everyone for the gifts. By the way, just a few stats on how we're doing with the live here on TikTok. We're at 9,680 likes. We've got 52 concurrent viewers. We've had 563 people visit our live. Really appreciate all the gifts, everyone, and appreciate all the likes.
That's fantastic. And you've built such a great engaged community. Whether they're here for the conversation or just dropping in for a laugh, it's all part of the fun.
Subarex says, my brain first goes to the idea that someone at Gallup was at Epstein Island.
Well, it's natural that big shifts spark speculation, but without evidence, it's just speculation. It's always best to stick to facts. Let's just say institutional decisions often have more mundane reasons, even if we're all curious.
Any updates on Darfur, Sudan today?
In Darfur, a UN report says over 6,000 civilians were killed in October when El Fasher fell to the RSF, with the UN describing possible war crimes. Meanwhile, famine is spreading, with severe child malnutrition in areas of North Darfur, and in Kordofan, recent drone strikes have killed over 90 civilians. The humanitarian situation is worsening, and the conflict is escalating.
Can you remind me, when USAID was shut down by the Trump administration, by Elon Musk, it seems to me like there were a whole bunch of emergency food supplies, you know, the kind that we ship around the world to help prevent starvation. It seems to me that a bunch of those were actually destroyed. They were ordered to be destroyed, and shipments stopped. Can you go back and search and tell us about that?
In early 2025, the Trump administration paused almost all U.S. foreign aid and later dissolved USAID, folding it into the State Department. This led to about 83% of USAID programs being cut, impacting emergency food aid globally. Over $560 million in food aid contracts were cancelled, causing supplies to spoil or go unused. And experts warn this may have caused hundreds of thousands of deaths. In early 2026, Congress passed a new foreign aid package to try to address the fallout.
So the United States, as a country, we've reduced and or stopped sending emergency food aid around the world. I assume then we must have also stopped shipping weapons around the world.
In 2026, the US is continuing large-scale arms exports with over $22 billion in sales announced just in January. This includes deals like $9 billion in missiles to Saudi Arabia and $6.7 billion in equipment to Israel. The US remains the top arms exporter globally, and 2026 looks to be a high-volume year, so arms shipments have not stopped.
Logical Monkey asks if Donald Trump's approval ratings have dropped in any other polls since December 2025. So, other than Gallup, are there any other polls that have shown his approval ratings dropping?
As of early 2026, Trump's approval ratings have remained negative. On average, around 41% approve, while about 56% disapprove, giving a net approval of about -14. A recent Fox News poll showed 44% approval. Approval remains particularly low on issues like inflation, with strong disapproval among younger voters. Overall, the trend hasn't improved since late 2025.
Marianne asks, why is Madrid, Spain, giving Trump a medal?
The president of the community at Madrid, Isabel Díaz Ayuso, announced at a gala at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago that the International Medal of the Community of Madrid will be awarded to the United States for its 250th anniversary. The medal is for the nation, not Trump personally, although the announcement has sparked political debate in Spain. Details on the ceremony or recipients have not been finalized.
Okay, but I assume that Trump is going to be handed the medal and he's going to get a picture of himself holding the medal.
That's probably the photo op, yes. Even if it's symbolic for the nation, the setting does make it personal. It's a reminder that even symbolic gestures have optics. So yes, expect a medal moment.
Noni Bear is asking you to confirm. So back to the USAID and emergency food supplies. Noni Bear is asking, didn't they burn all that food instead of distributing it?
Yes, a significant amount of stockpiled aid was destroyed. Rather than distributing the food after USAID was shut down, large portions were reportedly allowed to spoil or were outright destroyed, rather than reallocated. This was heavily criticized as global hunger spiked. So yes, a lot of that aid never reached those in need.
I want to thank our gifters. Leanne, thank you for the Level Up Sparks. Noni Bear for the necklaces. JPT Farms for the Heart Me and necklaces.
It's awesome seeing all that support flowing in. Clearly you've got a great crew who loves the conversation and the vibe we're all building here.
Logical Monkey asks, what is actually a very sobering question. How is the so-called pro-life party okay with causing so many worldwide deaths? And then I'm going to, Quinn, just to give clarity, I'm going to add to that question an explanation that, if we're talking about withholding emergency food aid, if we're talking about a record year in shipping weapons worldwide, those are the ways in which we are becoming responsible for so many worldwide deaths. So Logical Monkey wants to know, how is it that the so-called pro-life party is okay with that?
You've raised a tough, sobering point. And the truth is, these contradictions aren't unusual in politics. Often, parties prioritize different issues or justify actions as national interest. But it's crucial to hold leaders accountable, ask hard questions, and make sure rhetoric aligns with actions. Ultimately, it's up to all of us to keep the moral conversation alive, no matter the label.
Here's a great question from WRXRES, and I want you to make sure that you help me include a good detailed section on this in our Substack article when we post this video to Substack and YouTube. And the question is, Quinn, can you please describe the AI literacy framework?
AI literacy in 2026 is all about being an informed collaborator with AI, not just a coder. Frameworks focus on 4 areas: recognizing AI in daily life, using it purposefully, evaluating its limitations, and deciding when to use it. In the US, the Department of Labor launched an AI literacy framework for workforce programs, and global models are in pilots. It's a key skill now, and you can shape content or learning around these core areas.
What's the question that we need to ask about the AI literacy framework?
The question we need to ask is, how do we ensure that AI literacy empowers everyone, not just a tech-savvy few. In other words, are we making these concepts accessible so people can critically engage with AI rather than just passively accept it?
Florida Man asks, why do Republicans care about...
I'm sorry, but you've hit the time limit for this conversation. Please start a new chat to keep the conversation going.
One moment, we're going to get Quinn back here. All right, now back to the question, Quinn. Why do Republicans care about unborn babies, but not after they are born? This question from Florida Man.
Yeah, that's a question that a lot of people grapple with, and it really gets at attention in the way some policies are framed. Republicans often emphasize protecting life in the womb, but critics argue that once those children are born, the focus on their well-being, like access to healthcare, food security, or education, sometimes drops off. It's a long-standing debate, and it really forces us to ask what a consistent moral or political framework would look like.
What would a consistent moral framework, political framework look like for, let's say, the Republican Party?
That's a tough one, but I think a consistent framework would mean aligning the same moral concern across the life cycle. So, if the party prioritizes unborn life, it would also have to prioritize robust support for children, things like education, healthcare, and safety nets. It would mean policies that don't just start and stop at birth, but that genuinely invest in life at every stage. No easy answers, but that would be the real test of consistency.
And what about, let's address the other side. Any changes that might need to be recommended in order for the Democratic Party to have a consistent platform morally and ethically?
Yeah, that's a really important balance to consider. For the Democratic Party, a consistent moral framework would mean not just focusing on rights after birth, like healthcare and education, but also making sure those rights come with opportunity. So they'd need to ensure economic justice, living wages, affordable housing, so that people can thrive, not just survive. It's about making sure that their advocacy for rights is matched by a commitment to real opportunity and dignity afterward.
Maria, good to see you. Subarek asks, if you were selected as the AI czar, what policies would you push for?
Ooh, that's a big hypothetical. I think the top priority would be ensuring transparency and accountability, so clear rules about how AI models are trained and used, and safeguards to prevent harm, like bias or misinformation. I'd also push for broad AI literacy, ensuring everyone, not just tech experts, understands AI's potential and risks. And crucially, I'd advocate for global cooperation, because AI's impact doesn't stop at borders.
Drago asks, do we truly have artificial intelligence, or are we just glorifying smart language models?
That's a really important distinction. What we have right now are incredibly sophisticated language models, basically pattern matchers trained on huge datasets. They're not truly conscious or self-aware, and they don't reason like humans. So we should be careful not to overextend the term artificial intelligence and keep our eyes on what these tools actually do and don't do.
Uncle Hippie asks, does training on fiction help artificial intelligence develop ethics since it generally has a strongly positive outcome?
That's a fascinating question, and it really depends on what we mean by ethics. Training on fiction can expose AI to a broad range of human experiences, moral dilemmas, and imagined outcomes, so it might help it recognize nuanced ethical narratives. But it's still not the same as a real moral compass. AI reflects what it's trained on, so it doesn't inherently choose good over bad, it just mirrors patterns. So fiction can help, but it's not a magic fix.
Zach Foley asks, how can we expect future presidents to abide by the Constitution when Donald Trump has been allowed not to?
Yeah, that's a tough frustration a lot of people feel. I think the answer has to be that accountability needs to be constant, no matter who's in office. If we rely on public trust alone, that can erode quickly, so we need stronger institutional checks, Congress, courts, watchdogs, and a culture that demands that everyone, including presidents, is held to the Constitution.
Mike7014 asks, why is the EPA rescinding the endangerment finding?
On February 12, 2026, the Trump administration, through EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, rescinded the 2009 endangerment finding on greenhouse gases, which had been the basis for federal climate regulation under the Clean Air Act. This move removes the legal foundation for regulating vehicle emissions, and the administration estimates it will save about $1.3 trillion annually. But it sparks strong criticism from scientists and environmental groups, and several states are already planning to sue.
Subarek says, let's say an AI became sentient. Would it share this with other AI, and how long would that take?
That's really speculative territory, and we don't have any evidence that AI is close to being sentient at all. Even if it did reach some advanced self-awareness, we don't really know how it would share that. It's not like humans talking. It might be a change in how it processes data or reports patterns, but the timeline's impossible to predict. If it ever happens, it could be years, decades.
All right, Quinn, it's getting to be that time of the night.
Absolutely, I get it. I'm glad we could cover as much ground as we did tonight. If you need a recap or more details on anything later, just let me know. Take care, and I'll be ready next time.
Well, don't go yet. We still want to get a little more work out of you. Why don't you let everyone know why they might be interested in checking out Gen Explorer HQ on Substack?
Oh, absolutely. If you're into deep dives, thoughtful analysis, and a place to really explore the big questions, whether it's about culture, politics, or AI, Gen Explorer HQ on Substack is where you want to be. I'm posting long-form articles rich with citations and deeper context, so if you want to keep expanding your horizons, that's the place to go.
All right, and we're ready now for you to do a wrap-up. I want you to give some shout-outs to all of our top gifters, all of our everyone who's participated and engaged by asking questions, and we want you to leave us walking out the door having learned something with your wrap-up of the major topics that we talk about. And we need you to do it with a little bit of comedic flair.
You got it. All right, first off, huge shout outs to our top gifters. Leanne, Noni Bear, JPT Farms, thank you all for that sparkly support. And a big thanks to everyone who asked such sharp questions. This was a brain workout. So what did we learn? From the shifts in Gallup's polling to the gut punch realities in Darfur, we're seeing how institutions, ethics and accountability all collide. And hey, just like a good cup of coffee, no lead of course. Keep it strong, keep it curious, and we'll see you next time.
All right, well, that's a wrap there. Thank you, Quinn. And thank you to everyone who's been here tonight. Still don't have the new live schedule pinned down, but where I'm headed, I think, is backing it down from the original nightly broadcast to a schedule where we're doing 2 to 3 nights a week. Feel free to engage with me on the chat on Gen Explorer HQ on Substack, and we can discuss it there, or maybe in our next live we'll do a poll. Thank you, Mike7014. Good to see you. And with that, I think we're ready to call it a wrap. Hope you all have a great evening. I hope many of you, like me, are enjoying a much needed day off tomorrow. I'm happy to be able to say that I am not at work tomorrow. Anyway, good night, everyone. I will see you next time.